Alright. It's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time we are covering chapter 25.1. This is from Arc 25, Scarab. So we begin Scarab. I'm just gonna turn this down a bit. But yes, we can see on the speed draw the courtroom being filled in. Many rows and chairs and such. Hey, Vic is here. I did not end up changing the music from last arc to this one. I had a very ambitious idea for music to do this time, and didn't really pan out. You can see this reference image for Danny in the speed draw from, I believe, Arc 16 at the mayoral debate. Vic says, I would have rather drawn benches, but Taylor says they were chairs. Yeah, what can you do? I bet Taylor sat on a bench and then called it a chair to annoy you. Yeah. She is a very antagonistic person sometimes, despite being the protagonist. Okay. So, anyway, the audience participation reminder, the question was 25.1, did the prank go too far? Vic says, she also didn't describe any outfits in this scene. Typical Taylor. If this was a Victoria scene, we would have heard how every single person was dressed, and that they were all poorly dressed, except for her. Hey Greg. Vic says, so she got the prison sweats. Yeah, I almost commented when we were messaging about it a few minutes ago that I thought it was funny that she's always in, like, either a tracksuit or sweats because she keeps going to prison. Those are her two main looks, tracksuit and sweats. Even before the story, she wore sweats all the time. I guess she's getting back to her roots. I really wasn't feeling myself until I went to prison and started wearing sweatpants again. Yeah. Vic says, she's just like me, athleisure icon. Alright, so, yes, for the themes, Greg says, Tattletale went to all this effort to get her out of sweats. It's true, and then she turns herself in and just becomes the queen of the sweatpants. Vic says, TT has terrible style. I hate to say it. It would be funny if there ever got to a point in your life where you accidentally dressed like how they describe Tattletale dressing. Taylor is so naturally stylish. Oh, man. Oh no, after saying how Tattletale has terrible style, Vic admits, oh, I def used to dress like Tattletale. And you're thankful that you've reached this time in your life when you are a far better dresser, and you look back in agony at your former Lisa-like self. X is black and purple, you wore your initials? Definitely. But anyway, so while that develops, the themes, much like the previous chapter, this one has themes for each scene that often don't carry over to the other scenes. There's sort of a leverage / power dynamics in the first scene, and in a very small way that does carry over to the next scene because Taylor's paranoid about something happening, but it's really mostly confined to the second one. Then there's sort of a family reunification, Taylor's sort of subversion of Danny's expectations. They have come back together, like, there's the runaway, they meet up before Shatterbird's attack, they meet right after Shatterbird's attack. She goes to see him third time in that thing where she sort of really understands his situation and how he has been like unable to take care of himself. And then in this, we're further in, and he's sort of had the oh no, she's a criminal, I'm gonna stand by her anyway. And then this is like a 3-beat in that section where they are back together, and instead of being like everything's gonna be, we're gonna fix everything and whatever, like Taylor specifically says, like, we just have to live with what we got, basically. Oh man, okay. So Vic had said, I had a hot pink cheetah print tie I would wear with a turquoise vest. Okay, I'm trying to think of this. A cheetah print, pink cheetah print tie, turquoise vest. Greg says bold, which I agree. Bold. And then Vic says, but nobody has worn anything as horrid as Victoria wore in the first group therapy session in Ward. Yeah, it's like famously in between me and Vic, she hates the outfit that Victoria wears near the beginning of Ward with Brockton Bay's skyline on it. We can get into the details in the future, but it's like a legendary item, this awful hoodie. Vic says, I also would have worn something that horribly, but not in my adult life. Horrible, but not in my adult life. Yeah. I don't think I wear anything that's like weird enough to like be at that level of the like sleeveless hoodie dress with the skyline of the city you're from on it. It's just I wear pretty basic stuff. Anyway, so yes, the family reunification thing from the middle part of the chapter, and then Taylor sort of in the third bit, I guess if there's any theme, it's just that she finally feels kind of like in a group she can deal with, I guess. They're not as good as the Undersiders, but this is gonna be okay, she thinks. That's not really a theme. So we'll leave it off the list. There's just gonna be, we're gonna jump right into the 25.1. So, this chapter has 3, oh wait, before we go, Vic just said, and when she wore it, I was like, this must be some post-end of the world fashion, but then she reveals she bought it at a fair pre-end of the world. Yeah. 25.1. This chapter has 3 scenes, all related to Taylor's status within the wards. It speeds us through the most important moments to get her from the Behemoth fight to living at the ward's headquarters in Chicago. First, we go to the Taylor and Glenn meeting with the review board, which is made up of PRT directors, which happens directly after the scene that ended the previous chapter. They just sort of walk through the door. We do start mid-conversation. It's sort of like it's like a intentionally wrong foots the reader kind of thing, I think, because of how like mid-thought it starts. Oh, Vic says, "Oh, William, I think the music is still playing." Oh my god, is it like looping? Oh, I did not mean for it to be looping, but you know, there we go. We got however much extra music. Vic says, "I must have just been enjoying it. I didn't notice." Well, I'm glad you were here to call it out because I just have the sound off rather than having headphones when I don't have a guest. Well, whatever. Everybody got to enjoy a few runs of the upbeat ska song. Let's see here. But yeah, it starts mid-conversation, and is a bit wrong footing. We'll talk about it in a minute. I just wanted to mention what the others are about. The second section of the chapter, Taylor attends her court hearing and is officially made part, or a probationary member of the Chicago wards, and then has a moment where she and Danny talk to each other. And then the third segment of the chapter, the third scene, is when Taylor moves into the ward's headquarters, and it's like a heartwarming scene. And we also get to see another heartwarming moment where Grace peer pressures Theo. Vic says it was hyping me up. Yeah. I'm glad it was getting you hyped for the stream. The first part of the chapter is the most contentious scene and it's the most pivotal, has the most on the line. It takes like 55% of the chapter. The second scene is maybe 20%, and then the third scene is like 25%. Look at me, being Wildbow, breaking things down into numeric portions to examine them. The first section has a number of different directors. The named ones are Armstrong, Wilkins, and Chief Director West. And then there's an unnamed lady director, and then others noted as additional flunkies, or however she says it. She definitely says flunky or flunkies to describe these people. She has a small amount of support on her side in the hands of Armstrong, and then she has a lot of opposition coming from Chief Director West, and then all of his additional flunkies, unnamed woman directors, and side guy Wilkins. Generally, Armstrong is trying to take a nuanced approach to describing what Taylor is like, but the others are jumping down his throat and being like, "So you're saying she's an accidental cult leader?" Vic says, "I don't know. She's like, Armstrong is supporting me, but he doesn't seem that supportive." Yeah, no. That's what I'm trying to describe, is that Armstrong is literally trying to take a more nuanced, like, supportive role, but because he's not, like, he's not coming to it from the same, like, place of attack that the others are. Vic says, she's like, Armstrong looks like my dad, so maybe she just thinks they're besties. Yeah. It's like, oh, they're two dads and they met in the supermarket. At the Tie Factory. No. it's like, I think that he is trying to, like, give an actual explanation for a bunch of stuff, but because of the way he's approaching it, he's leaving tons of opportunities for other people to, like, get jabs in. So I think that he's just sort of going about it in a way that's not as effective necessarily. But I think he's being sort of his earnest self in trying to like be on her side, but not. I don't know. I did feel like he was supportive of her, and I listened to the chapter a couple times, and there's like moments where he comes in and he's asking about bringing capes from the birdcage, but Taylor doesn't have like the context of the conversation of like them previously bringing up like releasing birdcage capes. So again, this is a guy who's maybe not the world's best communicator in every situation, like especially a contentious one like this. And he leaves Taylor thinking that he wants to throw her in the birdcage, but it was just a little jump scare. Vic says, yeah, well, she's like, birdcage? Yeah, and it like muddies the waters because it's like West saying a little extreme at that point. And like by a little bit later in the conversation, we know that West doesn't want to break the status quo. They want to throw Taylor in jail, and then they want to like wash their hands of having had her as a hero. They want to try and cover stuff up in terms of releasing more of the video that some of these directors think will show them in a more positive light. They're trying to push through all of this agenda today specifically, and trying to get it to a point where it can't be reversed, because they don't want Chevalier's input, because, like, as is evident, the only one who aligns with Chevalier out of the people who actually speak in this chapter is Armstrong. Well, and Glenn and the actual capes, but all of the other directors who have speaking roles are positioned against them. We get some sort of nods of agreement at one point with Armstrong, but they don't say shit, and we don't know how many of them there are, other than not many. So, you know, this all goes back and forth, and then that's when we get, what's the line here? I'm trying to find it on the chapter. Yes. So, Taylor, after she's told she's going to jail, then thinks about the Undersiders and is like, you know what? I could just attack all these guys and leave. But then thinks better of it. And she thinks he wanted to play hardball. I'd play hardball in return. I turned my attention to my swarm for a moment. And then there's about 4 pages of conversation before the revelation of what she's been doing since she thinks this. Instead of, like, preparing for a fight or whatever, she's relaying all of the conversation from this point onward to everyone out in the hall. And we get this, you know, delayed reveal. But it's nice that there's a clear demarcation point where she thinks about it and starts doing it, so it doesn't seem totally, you know, just out of nowhere. It's still like an oh shit kind of moment when the other capes bust into the room, but basically right after she starts sending out all the conversation that is in the room to everybody, then you know, Glenn starts sticking up for her, and then they talk to Glenn, and they're saying how they're just going to deflect. This isn't going to be that big a deal. They're going to cut their losses and throw her in jail. Some people will complain, but it won't matter that much. And, Taylor's arguing on her own behalf, and so is Glenn's saying that it's, people are going to be watching for their PR moves, etc., because they've done it too much. And, they're going back and forth. Taylor's arguing for her position, saying anything goes in an Endbringer attack. They're sort of scoffing at her a bit too much. Armstrong thinks that Taylor did well in the Endbringer fight, even though he has earlier in the conversation said, Scion won, we lost. Vic says, I do agree that anything goes in an Endbringer attack. Yeah, me too. And then they bring it back to Taylor's violations of previous agreements, such as the spiders in the back of the prison. And she's like, oh shit, I fucked up. And then she starts lying, not to bring it back to a song that Vic hates, but I'm gonna do that. Why you always lie? Taylor can't help but start lying. Vic says, I love when Taylor lies. Of course you do. And then, trying to cover, she goes, when? Can you name incidents beyond the Endbringer attack? They say the spiders thing, and she's like, well, if there were any, that's because there were eggs that got left behind. Not my fault, actually. And then they're like, and the costume you were weaving? Oh, fuck, they found it. And then she's like, well, I did that before I talked to the warden, even though we know it started after the warden. And then they're like, you could have reported an abandoned time-killing project stuck behind some pipes? Why? She's just like such a sleazy liar at this point. And then they're like, because this happens, and there's no reason to believe you. And then Arthur clenches her fist. And then it does bait them into saying stuff that they sort of... It's funny because, like, West here says some stuff, saying that she's unpredictable, da-da-da-da-da, good at manipulating people. But I think this almost helps Taylor's case, him seeming so against her, and then... Because, like, the thing behind the pipes or whatever, I don't know. It might just not sound like that big a deal for him to be going like this, especially with all the inflections and stuff removed, because Bug Speak doesn't have that. And then Armstrong sort of doubles back, and he's like, you're twisting my words! And then he explains again, under Bug Speak megaphone, what he was trying to say. That's swept aside, and then they're talking about how they sort of try and push for why they need to get on with things. It's late. It's been an emotionally exhausting day. And then Taylor starts to, snark at them for a moment, talking about how she's been fighting Behemoth while these guys have been sitting around. And while she's right, Glenn is also right to just be like, hey, stop it. But yeah, this is when the reveal happens, that it's like, the bugs have been going on. They've been talking to everybody. I think so. Let's see here. I guess it's a little longer. Wow, that kept it going pretty long. This is when she's like, the bugs were desperate, my power was crackling, and then there's a few more lines of dialogue, and then she's like, I spread the bugs throughout the whole building and said this whole conversation. And then this is when finally West admits, because Glenn says, Chevalier had a number of plans and you're unraveling them. Naturally, Mr. Chambers, we're aware of the thrust of those plans, recruiting villains, a darker, edgier protectorate. Provided he keeps to the rules, we're willing to let that be. But with the administration, the underlying framework that makes his teams possible, we have to maintain a balance. Keep the public and the president happy. He won't have our assistance. So, yeah, like the he won't have our assistance thing being read out to everybody in the hallway, to all the other capes, is, I think, super damning, because everybody who's still here is on Chevalier's faction. I can't think of a single Protectorate or Ward cape that is, like, aligned against him. And so, yes, the reveal says the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all come out. And then describes all the bugs in the building. And, you know, Vic just put a quote in the chat, which is the dispatchers in the room. And I think this is... I don't think of them as having super Texas accents all the time. But this reading of the chapter in the first audiobook, they do Exalt and Dispatch. And so it's like a really funny line reading of like, "You've been bugged. Only the bugs are the ones on the outside. They've been talking, reciting." It's like, I don't know. I think it's very funny. At first, Taylor is like, "Oh God, it's Dispatch. This isn't the guy I wanted." But he is completely on her side here, and is he's got the all the staring daggers and hard looks, etc. for Director West, for openly saying that he's going against Chevalier. Vic says, "She should have known he was on her side when he opened with the bug pun." Yeah, totally. Should have known. And then, you know, at first, he's like, "Oh, she was falsifying what was happening in here." And then Dispatch quotes a few things. Armstrong is like, "Everything you just said works, but I can't speak to the little details." Taylor says that she repeated everything verbatim. She probably did, but, you know, it is Taylor. They try and hit her with "this meeting was confidential," and then she's like, "Nobody told me it was confidential. What are you gonna do to me? You're already gonna send me to jail." Oh, Vic says, "She added evil cackles in between each line." Yeah, definitely. You know, she's had these two Protectorate people, Exalt and Dispatch, there for her, but now Tecton arrives too and goes, "Anything goes against Endbringers." And then there's a couple people there. There's Grace and Annex, but they get no speaking lines. You know, random flunky brings up Kismet. Tecton's like, "Oh, I get it. We disagree with your assessment of the events and agree with Taylor." I do like the line, "Not when she's gonna stab you in the back for a better margin of victory." And then let's see here. She says this is exactly what Chevalier wanted, to expose the rot. We get the "you're saying you're not rotten." It's not even a question. It's a scathing rebuke. And then you know, Taylor argues for Chevalier and Glenn's system. And then Tecton says that if they're going to undermine Chevalier, he's gone. He puts it all on the line. And then it says, "Here and there were murmurs of agreement." And then Director West gives in. He sort of... he just sort of goes into a speech about how she's going to be in Chicago as a member of the Chicago wards by the end of the week, and if she breaks any rules, she's going straight to jail. And then he says if he gets any excuse. And then they get out of there. They walk out, and the chief director calls after them that they didn't make any allies in this room today. This is Taylor saying a Taylor thing, but not being productive. I think you were my enemies before we even met. You'd never have given me the chance to be your ally. And then he says, you're wrong. And, like, she might be right, she might be wrong, but she didn't need to say that. Glenn could have told her this. But I get it. Sometimes you just gotta say stuff. So she goes up, talks to Tecton. He's very, warm toward her, I would say. And then the group sort of breaks up after talking for a moment. Tecton needs to talk to the team, etc. So she's talking to Glenn. He tells her that was foolish, directly those words. And then, she's like, oh, it wouldn't have mattered. And then he's like, you do this thing where you put people into allies and enemies camps, and then you only see them one specific way. Taylor pushes back on this a little, and he's like, look, even if you wouldn't have been friends, you didn't have to be enemies. And then, he gives her more of the think, but at least he doesn't go, think, Weaver. I don't know, there's a particular line delivery that always sticks in my head from the last interlude chapter of Arc 24, that I'm like, oh, gotta re-record that line, bud. But, he sort of walks her through the paces of thinking about the situation, how he's thinking about it, that the Director West and the other directors are scared that people will recognize that the PRT doesn't have the ability to control all of their heroes. Taylor's like, isn't that kind of what you wanted to happen for them to realize all these problems or whatever? And he's like, yeah, but, think about things before you do them, I guess. I feel like he's not always clear on what she could have done differently, even if he's like, you should have handled that differently. He doesn't really tell her enough of what to do. Anyway. So then they talk about how she's got to make a move. It's got to be big, a big success. But once she's in the public eye, she won't have any time to drop out of the public eye because she might get politically sniped by these directors, and she needs to be doing like big famous thing after big famous thing. And he says, keep the ramifications and scale of your actions in mind at all times. Use that strategic brain of yours. Above all, be patient. And then that ends the first segment. I'm going to talk to the characters, talk about the characters from scene 1 separately from I'll do like the characters and the world building, etc. And then I'll go back to scene 2. So in scene 1, we had Director Armstrong. He advocates to wait overnight and is clearly more on Taylor's side than any of the others. He has some allies, but is the only one speaking for the cause of Chevalier's new protectorate. He's pushing for even bolder possibilities, like bringing Capes back from the birdcage to fight the Endbringers with everyone else. We know from previous chapters that Armstrong is Weld's father figure and that he is not ideologically aligned with Pigo or other similar figures like Tag or West. So he's more focused on like the research side, the powers side, and the interpersonal side of capes. It's funny because like Armstrong is he's not like an avatar for Wildbow or anything, but he speaks to some of the points from like Wildbowian perspective, whereas the other characters are speaking their character's perspective, but like I think the book, like subtly or not, aligns with how Armstrong views situations. Um, he only gets a bit to do here. He's mentioned in passing in other chapters, and then we'll get to hear about him doing things in some later chapters. But he's an important background character, I would say. Random character director Wilkins. Not 100% sure if Wilkins is a man or a woman, so we'll just say Wilkins. Wilkins is the one to say, we're gonna handle this tonight. Giving a name to a few, like, even though it's literally only one other person, the fact that it keeps bouncing back and forth between Wilkins, the unnamed, but still, like, ever-present director woman, and then some of these additional side people, gives more, like, weight of numbers feel, and, like, sort of everyone aligned in one direction aside from Armstrong. So having these background characters, even though we don't know much about them, kind of makes the scene's flow work. Like, if West said all the lines all these different people said, he would seem like he already seems like he's hounding them and is kind of a dick, but he would just seem like ridiculous. Having it split up between the people works both as like a in-meeting power tactic as well as a reading tactic to make West seem, I think, a little more balanced in the scene. I forgot to say, Director Armstrong is from Boston and Director West is from Washington, I think, are the only ones we know. This unnamed lady is the one who said, of course, you're saying you're not rotten, which I thought was a good line. Let's see here. Just wanted to see if I can find, and it is funny, the way, like, so many people that Taylor doesn't like, it's like, he reminded me of Piggo. Also, the way she has barbs and insults for everybody. His graying hair was cropped close, and he had a combination of paler skin and dark circles under his eyes that made me think of a corpse. Good stuff. Let's see here. I wanted to see where one of the quotes was, but I'm not finding it. Sad. Anyway, so Chief Director West and the additional flunkies. This guy was left in charge as a replacement for former Chief Director Rebecca Costa Brown after the Echidna incident. Not just because she's super dead now. He seems like he sucks. And he'll be one of the forces that Taylor needs to navigate a lot in her life. So, yeah, sort of shape of things to come for her. Then we'll talk about Glenn. The moment you drop out of the public eye, you become vulnerable. You've got a reprieve, but when you do act, you're going to need to act big and you can't stop once that's happened. Once you act, you'll be giving them an opening, and you have to keep moving after that. Understand? And then, yeah, Glenn's all right in this. He helps her a little bit, helps her dial it back while she's in the hearing. He really tries to fall on the sword for her, and I think is successful in many ways. So he's essentially laying out the plan that she'll be following for this arc to kind of like go big or go home on this hero thing. And every once in a while, like I think she has a phone call with him later and stuff. So she's like trying to consult him and stuff. Then we got the Dispatch Exalt. Of course, you've got the You've Been Bugged line. Classic. I know that they were, like, not positioned 100% aligned with each other, but, like, I don't think Dispatch would be taking the time to storm in here if he was fine with what the other directors were doing. Oh. Okay.